So here we are driving the 2025 Mazda CX-70. This is a beautiful looking car, I think, especially in this zircon sand metallic color. Really, really cool. This color kind of changes with the sunlight on it, and then when it's overcast, it kind of looks like a different color. Really nice. If you're new to Mazda's lineup, well, basically this CX-70 is a CX-90 without a third row and some slightly different styling elements. And this and the 90 would be the biggest vehicle that Mazda currently makes. So today, we actually have a sponsor for this video, and that is Vredestein Tires. Vredestein Tires is a brand with a lot of history in Europe, and they've recently made their way over here to North America, and specifically here in Canada. So I've been running Vredestein Hypertrack all-season tires on my Mazda 3 and my Ford Focus for about a year now, and I've truly driven these in all seasons. Now these Hypertrack are ultra high performance, all-season tires that have exceptional wet capability, and they're perfect for this unpredictable Canadian climate. But these aren't the only tires Vredestein offers. From all seasons to summers, winters, and all-terrain tires. Visit their website to find the right tire for your vehicle and perhaps your Mazda CX-70. If you're looking for Vredestein tires here in Canada, just visit their website and add your location to see where the nearest tire dealer is to you. Demand a better tire. Demand Vredestein. Now this may be one of many videos you've watched on the CX-70, and what you'll find on YouTube is most of the reviews are on the plug-in hybrid or the high output version of this engine. So under the hood of this CX-70 is a 3.3 liter inline six. It's turbocharged, it's an 8-speed transmission, and this one makes 280 horsepower and 323 pound-feet of torque. And so when you get the fancier version of this vehicle, you get 340 horsepower, which is a lot of power. And if you get the plug-in hybrid, which is actually an inline 4 with a battery, that one makes 323 horsepower. Now for pricing, the Mazda CX-70 starts at around $49,000 Canadian or $40,000 in the US. The CX-90 starts at a lower price of $45,900 Canadian or $38,000 in the US. That may be mostly due to the fact that they don't offer the Select trim on the CX-70 in the US and the GS trim in Canada like they do with the 90. So it's kind of nice to get this base engine because this is probably what most people can afford. And a lot of the CX-70s and CX-90s that I see around typically have been this kind of more base trim. Now this isn't a base version of the vehicle. This is the second trim in. This is called a GT in Canada. But I actually don't know if the US has a trim like this because this has fully painted trim around the vehicle. Whereas I believe in the US you would get plastic cladding around your vehicle. So this is one thing I really wanted to know just personally is how much slower is the regular engine versus the plug-in hybrid or the higher output. They get about high 5s, low 6s, 0 to 60 times. They're pretty close, the two of them. So I'm pretty interested to know how fast this is to 60 miles per hour. And I've got a race box here, so let's find out. All right, traction control is off. We're in sport mode. Let's see here. 6.8. That's not bad. All right, super sunny day. We're not used to this on this channel. It's usually rainy or moody or something like that. Anyways, my normal spot where I usually film these was super busy today for some reason. Usually there's no one ever at that location. Anyways, so we're out here on a dirt road and we're gonna take a look at this zircon sand CX-70. Okay, so the big difference between the CX-70 and the CX-90 on the front end would be these sort of fake inlets here. They aren't cooling anything, but they do have a little slit in there to do an air curtain around the wheel. We've got a big blacked out grille, which you can't get on the CX-90 either, so just the CX-70 is blacked out. But overall, it looks fairly similar to the CX-90. And like all Mazdas, the lights are very bright. I'm also a big fan of these pulsing turn signals. They look really classy. So on the side is where it's a little bit different than the American version. Here in Canada, we can get painted cladding. So in the US, this would be a plastic sort of rough material if you get this base engine. Whereas if you step up, then you can get painted cladding. Now I do really like this inline 6 badge. I think they did a good job at making this look classy. And then you've got giant 21-inch rims. These are two 75/45s on both the back and the front. They are big. These are winter tires right now just because we're coming out of winter here in Canada. So those aren't the tires that it would actually come with. These mirrors do fold in and out when you park it. You only have keyless entry on the front, not the back. So you gotta just touch the front door handle if you wanna get into the back seat first. And then on the back here, this is probably the weakest part in terms of design, but I still think it looks pretty good. It's a little funny looking, but it's not bad. Now, one thing, if this is competing with a BMW X5, it would have been cool to have like a cool exhaust out the back here, some nice tailpipes, but this is probably the only Mazda I've seen that doesn't have tailpipe sticking out the back. So every week I run a poll asking you what your opinion is on the design of the vehicle that I'm reviewing that week. It's just a yes or no, simple. So between the polls on Instagram and YouTube, we got 542 votes and 89% of you approve of the design on the CX-70. So that's a very high approval rating. And I have to say, the week I had that CX-70, a lot of people were asking, what is that? Or that's really nice. Wow, that's a Mazda. So Mazda is really stepping it up when it comes to design, both inside and out. If you're wondering what I'm sitting in right now, this is just my very own Mazda 3 Turbo. I love this car, and I have done a 4-year long-term review, which you can find on my YouTube channel. It's the very first video that I put on this channel. But if you're wondering what's coming up next on the channel, it will be a 2025 Cadillac Lyriq Sport 3. But let's get back to the CX-70 and we'll talk about the interior. So Mazda's been kind of hitting it out of the park when it comes to interior design and exterior design, really. This is no exception. Now, this is sort of the base look for the CX-70. You can get some pretty cool colors. You can get like a terracotta color. You can get a red interior. I've been in those and they're really nice and premium. This still feels premium inside and a lot nicer than a lot of the competition. Right off the bat, physical buttons. This is terrific. If you want your fan speed up, you just press buttons. I know, wild thing, but a lot of cars have been putting their HVAC controls in the screen, so really nice, just up and down for temperature controls. If you got the ventilated seats, that button would be right here, but this trim doesn't have that. We do have heated seats right here, 3 increments, and then we have a heated steering wheel with just 1 increment. Mazda heated steering wheels typically just get warm in this area. Nothing really goes on the top and bottom, which is fine. This is where your hands are supposed to be anyways. There's a pretty nice texturized material up here. That looks pretty cool. If you get the fancier trims, you can get sort of suede up here. I think that would be hard to keep clean, but it does look nice. So I'm happy with this. The center console here, no piano black. Terrific, love that. So this won't get scratched up easy. We do have our rotary dial. This doesn't have a touchscreen, unfortunately. The higher trims do have a touchscreen for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, but you do just have to use this rotary dial down here. You do have cup holders down here, and that feels premium when you push that down. I've been in a Range Rover where this felt terrible, and this feels way better, so props to Mazda for putting in good materials in this interior. Now this is where you would change your drive modes. So you've got sport, normal, off-road. I've been driving this in sport for the most part. Just feels a little bit more exciting to drive. Now this one does have a wireless charger. Now if you don't have a phone case on your phone and you're pinning the gas, I should say, your phone does kind of like fly out. So if you have a grippy case, that's probably going to keep it in there a lot easier. I'm just kind of a crazy person and don't have a case on my phone. The shifter in here is interesting because all other Mazdas are just back and forth. I don't know why they didn't just keep that with this. This looks cool. This definitely looks more premium than the one in my Mazda 3, but you have to go like over for reverse and then back for drive. And then very often you put it up here and you think you're in park, but you're not. You have to make sure you push it back over for park. However, one thing that I complained about in my Mazda 3 was that the 360 camera button is all the way over here on the left, and it's kind of annoying to look over there to press that. I wished it was like over here, And in the CX-70, the camera button is right here, and it's a terrific 360 camera. It's the same one, it looks like, as in my Mazda 3, and I really like it. You can see all around the car, pretty easy. It's good enough. This is pretty much all you need to be able to see around the vehicle. Now, Mazda steering wheels are also really nice. I really like the shape of them. I like how they've made the Mazda logo smaller now. The Mazda logo used to be really big. I didn't really like the look of that. Now that it's smaller, it seems more minimal, it seems a little more classy. We're also missing some buttons here, and this is where your highway keep in your lane function would go. This CX-70 does not have the upgraded driver's display. This has analog gauges, exactly the same pretty much as my Mazda 3. But if you appreciate analog gauges, it's nice that they still offer this, because a lot of people prefer this over a digital driver's display. The digital driver's display, though, is really nice in the higher trims. I've seen it before. It was kind of a bummer to not see that in here. I think that could be a standard thing for the CX-70 across the board, because this is a pretty expensive vehicle, even at a base version. Windows are automatic up and down on all 4 doors, so that is also premium. That is nice. And then you've got a decent amount of storage in the door panel. You can fit a water bottle in there, no problem. These seats are pretty sharp looking. They're not like the most comfortable. I've complained about this in my own Mazda 3. Mazda seats are a little more firm. It is too bad that it's not a touchscreen even for Apple CarPlay in this model. I think at this price point that should just be kind of standard stuff as well, but I guess they got to upsell somehow. So here we are in the back of the CX-70 now, and we've got this nice big panoramic moonroof. Doesn't come all the way back, but it's really good still. You can still see out and see all the trees. Pretty nice, tons of legroom, like a lot of legroom here. Now, do we have enough headroom? I've got a lot of headroom, so it's good for me. We also have sunshades in the back on this particular model, which is really nice, especially if you have younger kids back here and you don't want them to be getting hit by the blazing sun. We also have a lot of storage in the door panel as well. You can fit at least 3 water bottles in there, probably. It's a lot. And then we do have cup holders back here. This is nice and soft too, really good cushioning. I should have mentioned this up front, but the center console here, really good padding, and the door panel also really good padding. Really comfortable for your elbows. And you can recline these seats up and down, so this is about as far back as you can go. And then you can pull them up and you can sit straight up if you want to. Now, these seats do go back and forward, so let me show you that. But interestingly enough, there's actually a storage compartment behind the seats. So there's like a little storage cubby back here. Interesting. You can only really access it if you pull these seats forward. And then back here we've got our own climate control, we've got heated seats, and we do have 2 USB-Cs. So I'm pretty happy with the back seats here. No complaints really. So in the cargo area, we have about 39 cubic feet behind the second row and 75 cubic feet when the rear seats are folded down. It's very easy to fold the seats down, and the seats do fold fairly flat. Not completely, but fairly flat. There is also a spare tire underneath the cargo floor as well. You'll notice that it's a fairly high load floor, but this is mainly due to the rear-wheel drive architecture of the CX-70. Typically, vehicles in this class are built on a front-wheel drive architecture like the Grand Highlander or the Honda Pilot. However, the CX-70 is trying to go for that driver engagement, kind of like a BMW X5, because they like to compare themselves to that. Now, I did just finish filming a 2025 Honda Pilot, and this would compete with the CX-90 as a 3-row SUV. While the Pilot is a much different vibe entirely, with the third row down you get 48.5 cubic feet, so more than the 90 and the 70, and with the seats down you get 87 cubic feet of cargo space. All right, so here we are through some turns. This thing handles so well. It's very surprising in something this big for it to feel this agile. And that's one awesome thing about Mazda, is they really prioritize the handling in their vehicles. One thing about this transmission is that when you're getting up to speed, you're accelerating, it's really good, it's smooth, it shifts smoothly. However, at lower speeds, it feels a little clunky sometimes. Not as enjoyable to drive at lower speeds, just kind of driving through the neighborhood or slowly through the city. Out here on the country roads, when I'm hitting the gas, it's just really good. It's quick, it's pretty responsive, to be honest. Now, the steering is heavy in this. and it is pretty direct. It does just handle its weight really well. However, because this is kind of set up to be sporty, it is a little stiff. It does feel a little rough over bumps sometimes, and part of the reason for that with this particular one is probably the 21-inch rims. They look sick, but you do feel the bumps. Visibility around the vehicle is good. Because this is the CX-90, there is a big window in the back where there's supposed to be a third row. Well insulated in here. The only thing you really hear is sometimes gravel getting in the wheel wells is really loud, so I don't know how much insulation is in there. It's not that big of a deal. All right, so let's talk about fuel economy. I have been averaging about 11.5 liters per 100 kilometers this week. When I first picked up the vehicle, it was at 12 liters per 100 kilometers, so whoever had it last was pushing it. But that does include a fair amount of highway driving. I do have a 2-hour drive to bring this vehicle from Toronto back to London, where I live. And so 11.5 liters is what we're getting in here. The fuel tank size is 70 liters, so for Americans, that's 18.5 gallons. And I filled it up this morning, and it cost about $90 Canadian to fill it. Now with this mild hybrid, the start and stop system works really well. You hardly even notice that anything has happened. So you saw last week I had a Toyota Crown Signia. Now that vehicle was as spec'd about $62,000. This one's $54,000 Canadian. They would compete because they are long 2-row SUVs basically. The Crown Signia is a little bit more like a wagon, I would say. But the Crown Signia, is a huge difference in how that drives. That is a 4-cylinder, that is a CVT, and not very exciting to drive. Very comfortable, and the suspension was awesome. Like, you don't feel the bumps in that thing. Whereas something like this, the CX-70, is just more engaging to drive, but then there is that trade-off because then the suspension is stiff. It comes down to priorities. The Crown Signia is definitely aimed at an older demographic, I would say, probably more aimed at people who are retired. Whereas the CX-70 is kind of aimed at maybe a young couple that doesn't have kids yet or just has one kid and they want something large with a lot of space. So this would be a cool option. And it's kind of a unique option. The CX-70 is a great looking vehicle and it has a little bit of character to it, whereas a lot of the other vehicles in this class are just kind of appliances, I guess I would say. But there are the trade-offs with this being sporty. It's not as comfortable of a ride as some of the other competition. So really it comes down to what your priorities are. I think a lot of people were disappointed when the CX-70 came out because it wasn't like the CX-60, which is available in other markets. I think that's the size that a lot of people that would be looking at a 2-row SUV want. It's an interesting package, this CX-70. I think it probably could have been called a CX-80, and then the CX-90 would be the 3-row. I think that would have made a little bit more sense. But there is a CX-80 in other markets. So sometimes people will compare the CX-70 to an X5. I don't know if Mazda's really there yet when it comes to the engine. But when it comes to the driving dynamics, this is really, really good. I think it's just going to be a couple more years before they perfect this motor up here. I'm not saying it's not a good package right now. I'm just saying this is a new engine for Mazda, and I think they are still sort of figuring it out. So to conclude, this standard output version of the CX-70 definitely has enough power when you're in sport mode. It's a classy looking vehicle inside and out, and it is fun to drive at higher speeds. And yes, it is one of the best looking vehicles in this segment. Other vehicles in this segment would include the Jeep Grand Cherokee, the Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport, the Honda Passport, maybe the Nissan Murano, maybe even the new Subaru Outback. Luxury competition would include the Lincoln Nautilus, the Lexus RX, and the X5, as I've mentioned, although I don't entirely believe someone will buy a CX-70 over an X5 if they have the money for an X5. All in all, the slightly different exterior aesthetics have to really draw you in to buy this over the CX-90. And yes, I think the slight styling differences are better, but are they enough to make you want to buy the same vehicle without a third row? Anyways, that's all for now. A big thanks to Vredestein Tires for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you for watching, and we'll see you soon.